So, by the way, what do you think about this? All right, we were in a classroom, and I was upgraded to a theater. So upgraded to this magnificent theater. It's called Teatro Latea in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and it's great. I mean, a lot of art after that Duchamp that we were talking about, Marcel Duchamp, who just took a urinal, put it there. Another expression of art has been performance. A lot of artists, then again, since the art is the artist's choice, I'm going to choose a toilet, and that's going to be the art because I say so, and I put the toilet. I didn't touch the toilet. I didn't make the toilet. The toilet was done by Kohler or whatever company does toilets. So then you also have performance. People acting out in a gallery, let's say like, just this is a performance, and then you record it like we're recording it. So all our offshoots of Duchamp and of the so-called avant-garde of the 20th century. Still, I hope you don't miss the classroom. So we're with Picasso. Picasso did everything. Matisse was luxury, calm, and voluptuosity. And with analytic cubism, we start going away from what is being depicted to the sense of what it is, like the visual sense without describing it. It's weird. It's like the essence of the thing. And so, now we have what we call non-objective art, abstract art, non-representational art. And I was mentioning a guy called Kandinsky because the Russians were, by 1918, they get into the revolution, the Russian Revolution. And you have this incredible artists in Russia that are trying to do non-objective art, that you can't, it's just non-figurative. There's no figure. There's nothing. You have a guy called El Lisitsky, putting out some amazing things in the early 20s. You have Malevich, Casimir Malevich, and others. And a lot of the energy of this then starts flowing into a couple of very, very well-known things. Instead of the Beaux-Arts, you have a new school for art that the avant-garde starts considering, especially for architecture, constructivist and non-objective art, design. It's called the Bauhaus, and it's in Germany, and it has had a remarkable influence afterwards. So you have the Bauhaus, and then you have some of these non-objective things, which were more like, very, very avant-garde. Then eventually you have an artist called Piet Mondrian, who was Dutch, who ended up living in the United States after the war, or came for the war, or something like that. And he makes it popular. It's like the squares, white, a little bit of color here and there, and it's very abstract, but it's very beautiful. It's a very strong style, very definitive look. The Museum of Modern Art loves him. So then abstract art gets hip. It starts getting very hip. This is composition with yellow, red, and blue from 1927. So we're going from the first quarter of the 20th century into the second quarter of the 20th century. And in that space, in that time, well, you have, again, the advent of the Russian non-constructivist work. The Russians were also huge on film. I am afraid I neglect film in this class because there's just so much to give you in terms of visual art that we don't talk about film. But for example, part of the revolution, of the Russian Revolution in the arts and in visuality and in building a new society was film as the privileged art form to sort of construct a new society. And one of the greatest films of all times, I hope you get the chance to see it, is called Battleship Potemkin. Battleship Potemkin by one of the geniuses of film, period. His name is Sergei Eisenstein. And you have all the techniques of film are already exploited by Eisenstein in Battleship Potemkin, again from that first quarter of the 20th century. And as we continue with this drive to non-objective art, the Bauhaus, a school for designers with an avant-garde flair, you also have that the world is happening. The world is happening, and a couple of things are happening. Germany is becoming more powerful, and it will soon initiate a campaign that will prove disastrous for everybody because it will lead to World War II. It will lead to the genocide of the Jewish people, which were very, very at home in Germany at that time. And these disasters will happen. There was a depression in the United States of America that was also very serious and caused a lot of damage and a lot of anxiety and a lot of anguish. And as these things are going on, you also have early in the, as that first quarter of the 20th century is moving on to the second quarter and before war, we're talking like 20s to 30s, we have a new art style, a new art movement, an avant-garde thing. After Cubism, right? We had Cubism, and it's called Surrealism. And that one has been so influential. You all know about it because we all see music videos. By now, Surrealism is mainstream. But this was like the eye being cut, eyes all over the place, sort of like putting things in the wrong place so that they look out of place and they look different. The unconscious, what you're thinking, lots of sex, like sexual innuendos, sexual objects, the power of sex. You have like a furry cup in a, like a coffee cup. It's by Meret Oppenheim, one of the women artists associated with Surrealists. And the whole Surrealist thing also led to biomorphic abstraction. Sort of Picasso, so Picasso did Surrealism. Picasso did everything, He also did Surrealism, although the big name in Surrealism is called Salvador Dalí, another Spaniard like Picasso. And Salvador Dalí worked very closely with film. He worked with Alfred Hitchcock, but more importantly, he worked with another Spaniard filmmaker called Luis Buñuel. And they did this film that was kind of like the anthem of Surrealism, Un Chien Andalou, Un Perro Andaluz, an Andalusian dog. One of the great films of Surrealism. You see an eye being cut in half, and all these things are visible too, obviously less dramatically than in film, in the visual arts, in paintings. And some of the great painters of the Surrealist era are Max Ernst, Giorgio de Chirico, an Italian de Chirico, and you have also people like Joan Miró, another Spaniard. Spaniards have had a great trajectory as painters and artists in Europe and in this art history, of course. So at this time, in the 30s, since we're talking about Spain, there was a civil war. There was a remarkable civil war, very bloody, very violent, some left-leaning groups and some sort of like more conservative groups are fighting each other. And you have Pablo Picasso gets really motivated because there was the bombardment of a civilian town. It's called the first bombardment of a civilian population, the town of Guernica. And Pablo Picasso does this mural about the anguish and about the destruction of poor innocent people because of the civil war and military aviation. And here's a picture of Guernica. Look at again the lessons of Cubism, but now it's coming out more fluid, more representational. You can recognize it, but it's distorted. And it's distorted to try to show even more intensely the emotion and the destruction and the abuses. And you see here on the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the picture, but the left-hand side when you're looking at it, the bull. Because the bull is a symbol that comes all the way in art history from Minoan Crete, for those of you that are taking my Art History 1. And it's a symbol in the Mediterranean. It's a powerful force. It's a powerful animal. And Picasso reveres that animal. Look at the bull here in Guernica. Before we finish, I know I have given short shrift to the Americas. Again, we don't have space for anything and everything. But, the United States of America during the Depression produced incredible works. some of them a little bit later on as we're getting closer to the wartime, right after the Depression. And one of the amazing Afro-American artists of all time is a guy called Jacob Lawrence. And Jacob Lawrence does this narrative series of the exodus of the African Americans, you know, from the countries to the cities, Chicago, New York, and Detroit. And you know, and you have this, and these are smallish paintings, and they just show how, once again, there's truth and beauty, but these are more about criticality, about recording, about showing that we are alive, we exist, Afro-Americans and other groups that have been considered marginal, or that appear as servants in a Monet painting, that appear, as shooters in Goya's, in Goya's etchings. So Jacob Lawrence, you should look at Jacob Lawrence. And of course, at this time, 20s and 30s, you also have that the United States starts tapping some amazing talent from Mexico. We really haven't done justice to Mexico. Mexico is a universe in its own right. It could have 10 classes of different periods of Mexican art. But at this time, this is the time of Diego Rivera, the great muralist that's following the ideas of the Russian Revolution in the there's the Mexican Revolution and there's the Russian Revolution, early 20th century. So, they're close together, they admire each other, and Diego Rivera is doing murals, showing people involved. He gets together with Frida Kahlo, who was an amazing painter, who's become even more important at the end of the 20th century than she was in her own life, and she was very important in Mexico in her own life. And you have that these people are invited by the capitalists. The capitalists invite them to paint for them, and they come to the United States. They're part of that Museum of Modern Art Enthusiasm, and that you have a profound legacy of Latin American art in the United States at the time when the United States is about to become the leader in world art, because the war hasn't happened. This is 20s and 30s, just up to the 40s. Then there's going to be the war. The United States gets involved. Paris is destroyed, not destroyed, but ravaged. Europe is in shambles because of the German onslaught. And then, United States involves. They win the war, and then all these artists just start showing up here. They were showing up at the United States before the war or during the war to escape the ravages of the war, but now Europe is in dire straits. The art world becomes constituted in and around the city of New York. So we have seen how this has changed from Florence, to Rome, from Rome to Paris, from Paris, maybe to Berlin. There was a time there in the Bauhaus school, a lot of art coming out of Berlin, a lot of film, and now, in Paris, and now it comes to the United States, to the city of New York. Thank you.